So, good day everyone. Today I will be discussing the remaining topics in CDI 3 natin or yung Specialized Crime Investigation 2 with simulation of interview and interrogation. So, for virtual classroom etiquette, again, pakibalikan po natin yung virtual classroom etiquette natin. And for our learning objectives, at the end of the lesson, the student should be able to illustrate rape and sex crime investigation, acquire knowledge skills on Republic Act number 7877, Republic Act 1379, and Republic Act 8484, and define technicalities in computer forensics and cyber terrorism. So let's proceed with rape and sex crime investigation. So as we all know, since kayo po ay criminology students and you have the knowledge regarding rape and sex crimes investigation kasi marami na kayong major subject na napagdaanan. So hopefully, alam niyo na rin kung ano yung definition of rape and sex crime investigation. So rape, when and how it is committed. So rape is committed by a man who shall have carnal knowledge of a woman under any of the following circumstances. Ano ba yung mga circumstances na yon? First, through the use of force, threat, or intimidation. So, alam nyo naman na once na ang isang tao is na-rape, kailangan may force, threat, or intimidation. Hindi ka naman makakagawa na rape kung ginusto ng isang tao. Hindi na po rape pag ginusto ng isang tao yung pamumolestya sa kanya. Another is when the offended party is deprived of reason or otherwise unconscious. Again, when the person is conscious na gagahasain siya, it is not considered as rape. Kasi masasabi mo lang siyang rape kung gumamit na siya ng threat or force sa'yo kapag ka ikaw ay, o kapag nalalaban ka na, ibig sabihin, nakakakumit na siya ng rape as long as hindi mo kayang i-defend ang sarili mo. Or may mga palatandaan or signs na ikaw ay nanlalaban. Next is, by means of fraudulent machinations or grave abuse of authority. Kasi karamihan na kaya lang po napipilitan na ma-rape is dahil meron pong grave abuse of authority. Especially kapag nakita niya na mahina ka, na wala kang kalaban-laban. And rape is also committed by any person who shall commit an act of sexual assault by inserting his penis into another person's mouth or anal orifice or any instrument or object into the genital or anal orifice of another person. So, do you think na mako-consider ba na rape kapag yung penis ay insert daw sa mouth ng isang tao? So, ang answer po is yes. Hindi po, pag sinabi po natin inserting his penis into the mouth of other person or another person, considered po siya as rape kasi meron po siyang paggamit ng force and intimidation. Gumagamit din siya sometimes ng threat para magawa mo yun sa isang tao. Unless po, kung ginusto niya na talaga yung ginagawa niya. Hindi na po siya mako-considered as rape. Next, under Republic Act number 8353 entitled the Anti-Rape Law of 1997, the crime of rape can now be committed by a male or female. So ngayon po, may bagong batas po tayo, yung RA 8505 or Anti-Rape Shield Law. Remember po, yung law na yon na inamend din po ng RA 8353. So kung dati po, before its amendment, rape could only be committed by male person. So, familiar naman po kayo na pag sinabi nating rape, ay lalaki lang po yan. Lalaki lang po yung pwedeng mang-rape. Pero ngayon po, kino-consider na rin po ang rape as committed or committed by male or female. Next, offender personality types. So, we have 5 offender personality type. First is Power-Reassurance Rapist. So, the Power-Reassurance Rapist psychologically doubts his masculinity and seeks to dispel his doubt by exercising power and control over women. Commonly, they have encountered in stranger-to-stranger rapes. This type of suspect frequently plans his attacks through surveillance of the victim. Using a minimal amount of force, the Power-Reassurance Rapist generally continues to rape in an ongoing cycle until apprehended. So, Power-Reassurance Rapists may show remorse following an attack and seek to apologize or exhibit guilt in some other fashion. Such remorse is only temporary or altogether false, as the suspect will typically continue to seek dominance through the additional attack. So, si Power-Reassurance Rapist po, since ang sabi po kanina is may remorse, tinatawag din po siyang polite or apologist. Bakit po? Sila po yung mga nagsisisi after nilang gawin yung kasalanan nila o after nilang mang-rape ng isang tao. They does not intentionally degrade or emotionally traumatize the victim. Ang gusto lang po nila is patunayan yung masculinity nila over women. And sa tingin po ng mga Power-Reassurance Rapists na kapag ginawa nila yun sa isang babae is napatunayan nila na lalaki siya. Or kaya nilang panindigan yung pagiging lalaki nila. Another is Power-Assertive Rapist. The Power-Reassurance Rapist asserts their masculinity and dominance over victims. In contrast to the Power-Reassurance Rapist, this type of rapist does not doubt his masculinity, but uses rape as form of symbolic power over women. So, the Power-Assertive Rapist is often skilled at social deception and may befriend or know the victim prior to the attack. When the suspect perceives a safe time and place for the attack, he will exhibit his true personality and aggression to overpower the victim. So, generally, the Power-Assertive Rapist uses more severe force than that exhibit by the Power-Reassurance Rapist. So, kung kanina sa Power-Reassurance Rapist, para mapatunayan yung masculinity nila, actually, itong 5 types of personality rapist natin is para mapatunayan nila ang masculinity nila over women. The difference between Power-Reassurance Rapist is in Power-Reassurance, stranger to stranger po. While in Power-Assertive Rapist, yung lalaki po is kilala niya na si babae. And nagawa niya yung rape case na yun or yung pangre-rape sa kanya, panggagahasa sa kanya is for example, binabantayan niya sa araw-araw nagtatrabaho. And then, alam niya yung oras ng labas, alam niya kung kailan uuwi si girl. And dahil nga planado na niya, alam na niya yung gagawin niya, babantayan niya na ngayon si girl. And kapag binantayan niya po, dadalhin niya yun sa place in which gagawin na niya yung plano niyang pangre-rape sa isang babae. And that is Power-Assertive Rapist. Kung sa Power-Reassurance, stranger to stranger, sa Power-Assertive naman po is kilala niya po si babae. He knows the victims na po pag sinabing assertive rapist. Third is anger retaliatory rapist. This third type of rapist uses extreme anger to retaliate psychologically for real or imagined past wrongs associated with women. So, the anger retaliatory rapist modus operandi is characterized by a highly violent attack and his motivation to punish or degrade the victim. Generally, such suspects do not plan their attacks. Rather, they impulsively select and attack victims based on similarities in appearance to a past female figure. Victims are typically strangers who are overcome by a sudden, overpowering physical assault which causes serious physical injury requiring hospitalization. So, si anger retaliatory rapist, sila na po yung may mga nakaraan na hindi maganda sa isang babae. For example, pangit yung pagkakilala nila sa isang babae. And therefore, once na nakakita sila ng isang babae, nakagaya din ang nangyari sa kanila or nakilala nilang babae, yun na yung time na lalabas yung anger nila at ang purpose niya is to punish women. And yung po yung and they uses sex to punish or degrade them with intention. Yun yung way nila para makaganti sa babaeng nanakit sa kanila. And that is anger retaliatory rapist. And si anger retaliatory rapist po is stranger to stranger din. Why? Kasi po, nagbe-base po sila doon sa mga nakilala nilang babae, and then ipino-project nila yung babaeng nakilala nila sa babaeng nakikita nila. And kapag nakita nila yung similarities doon sa babaeng yun, may nakita siyang figure sa babaeng yun na naging dahilan kung bakit siya nasaktan, yun na yung way at magiging dahilan ng anger niya. And pag tumaas yung level of anger niya, magiging punishment niya yung sex to degrade women. That is anger retaliatory rapist. Next is sadistic rapist. Whereas extreme anger characterizes the retaliatory rapist, the sadistic rapist displays the greatest amount of hostility towards victim. Sadistic rapists purposely inflict pain beyond the necessary to subdue the victims. For him, the visible suffering is found sexually arousing. Owing to a highly abnormal psychological conditioning, the sadistic rapist is generally capable of achieving sexual gratification only through extreme violence. After extensive planning, the suspect purposely selects a stranger as his victim, immobilizing and transporting the victim to an isolated environment for a prolonged attack. It is fortunate that sadistic rapists are the least common type of rapists, as their attacks have the highest probability of ending in criminal homicide. Most sadistic rapists are highly compulsive and have a strong ritualistic modus operandi which they may record during the rape. So sa sadistic rapist, ito na po yung worst rapist. Bakit po siya naging worst? Kasi ito na po yung gumagamit na po siya ng extreme violence sa isang tao to achieve their sexual gratification. And it covers or committed through stranger to stranger. Ang dadalhin niya to sa isang lugar, isolated area na malayo sa mga tao, in which wala naman talagang gumagawa ng rape, nakaharap na yung mga tao, and dadalhin niya yun sa isang isolated area na wala talagang wala talagang bagay na makita sa kanila or walang taong makakita sa kanila, and yun doon na niya gagawin yung extreme violence, and that is his way as to achieve their sexual gratification. And the final type of rapist is the opportunistic rapist. The opportunistic rapist is generally one who, in association with the commission of initial offense, commits rape as secondary offense. Bakit po siya naging secondary? Kasi po, nakakommit na siya ng isang crime sa tao. For example, ninakawan niya yung bahay ng isang tao. And gumamit siya ng force, intimidation, and that is robbery, right? And then, yung rape, wala talaga sa plano niyang gawin. Ang plano niya is mag-commit ng robbery or pagnakawan ng isang bahay, isang tao. Ngayon, nung nanakawan na niya yon, dahil nga wala sa plano niya, pero ginusto niya dahil nadala siya sa kanyang emosyon, nakakommit siya ng rape. To the point na, para walang makaalam, ang worst pa na mangyayari is mapapatay niya si victim. And that is opportunistic rapist. Nandun na yung opportunity mo na gawin nyo rape. For example, yung napagnakawan mo na bahay is maganda. Maganda yung bahay, maganda din yung owner. And syempre, lalaki ka, ma-arouse ka sa isang babae. I'm not saying na lahat ng lalaki is na-arouse once na nakakita ng magandang babae. Pero, hindi ko lang din sure. And then, kapag ka yung, syempre, nandala ka na ng arousal mo, and then, yun na yung mangyayari, makakakomit ka ng another offense, and that is secondary offense. Secondary offense mo lang yung rape since may nakomit ka na first offense. And yung first offense mo, yun talaga yung plano mong gagawin sa isang bahay. But, nagkaroon ka ng opportunity para rape ng isang tao, and to the point na aabot na siya until mapatay mo. Next is Okay, so that's the end of our 5 offender personality types in rape cases. Another is Republic Act 7877 or yung Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. So, sexual harassment under the law, work, education, or training, related sexual harassment is committed by an employer, employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employer, teacher, instructor, professor, coach, trainer, any other person who having authority, influence, or education environment demands and requests. So, in sexual harassment, it otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirements for submission is accepted by the object of the said act. In sexual harassment, alam nyo naman po, sobrang familiar kayo dyan na once na nagawa siya, kunting hipo lang sa'yo na may motive, considered na sa sexual harassment. And hindi lang po yan nangyayari in work-related, but in education or training area. Kasi po, ang sexual harassment po ay pwede yung mangyari throughout the uh, job or kung ano man yung ginagawa niyo or what you are doing as long as nagkaroon siya ng motibo para may gawin sa'yo kakaiba. And that is sexual harassment. So, how is work related to sexual harassment and how it is committed? So, the sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or in the employment, re-employment, or continued employment of said individual or in the granting said individual favorable compensation, terms, conditions, promotions, or privileges. So, refusal to grant sexual favor results in limiting, segregating, or classifying the employee which in any way would discriminate, deprive, or diminish employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affects the said employee. Kung sa una, ginagawa siya as condition in hiring, kasi karamihan po ganan, na papayag ka na gamitin o papayag ka na hawakan, mahipuan, as exchange for your employment or hiring in the employment or passing your grade. So, karamihan po ganun ang nangyayari na kaya ka lang pumapayag is dahil may condition. And sometimes, pabor sa iba dahil kaya ka papayag is favorable yun sa inyo kasi magkakaroon siya ng positive result para sa inyo but in a wrong way. Next, the above acts would impair the employee's rights or privileges under existing labor laws. So, because the employee will be somewhat scared of what happened and she will be overpowered by his boss, employer, that's why even though she was being threatened, she remains silent because she is thinking for her safety. So, in sexual harassment, hindi lang po siya sa positive result, meron din po siyang sa negative result. Maaaring dahil natithreaten ka, natatakot ka sa employer mo, kaya hindi mo masabi or wala kang mapagsabihan, kaya ka hindi nakakapagsalita. And you will remain silent for this. And hahayaan mo lang siya na gawin ng paulit-ulitin yun sa'yo dahil alam mo, may banta siya sa'yo or may threat siya sa buhay mo. Next, the above acts would result in an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the employee. And dahil nga dun sa mga nangyayari sa kanya, she will be traumatized because of what happened to her. Kasi po, may mga taong hindi naman talaga nila ginugusto yun. Nangyayari lang yun sa kanila because natithreaten sila or maaaring tinatakot sila ng mga authorized person. And yun yung dahilan kung bakit hindi ka makakapagsalita. Siyempre, kahit kayo na takutin, especially sa mga girls, na once na tinakot kayo, hindi maaaring hindi kayo mag-refuse as long as alam nyo na sa tama kayo at kaya mong panindigan yung ginagawa mo. Pero kapag ikaw ay tinakot na ng mas nakakataas at alam mong wala kang kalaban-laban, hindi ka na magsasalita and you will be traumatized kasi kung ano yung paulit-ulit na ginagawa sa'yo, yun yung papasok at papasok sa isip mo na wala ka nang mapag sabihan. Next is how is sexual harassment is committed in relation to education or training. So this is committed who has the care or cause, nakocommit siya kung may care because of the care and custody of the offender. Hindi lang naman po siya nakocommit ng ikaw lang mismo na nasa trabaho ka, ikaw lang din ang magko-commit. It was being committed by the employer or by the supervision or custody or kung sino yung person na may nagsusupervise sa'yo, as well as yung education and training of your as well as your education and training. So once na entrust mo yan, or once na you are being trusted by the employer or by the educational person or authorized person, yun na yung time na magkakaroon na siya ng sexual favor sa'yo as condition to giving of passing grade, granting of honors and scholarships, and allowance or other benefits. And it may result for having offensive environment on the part of the student, trainee, or apprentice. Kasi, like what I said earlier, na once na nagkaroon ka ng communication or once na pinagkatiwalaan mo yung nakakataas sa'yo, authorized person, alam mong tiwala ka, ito na yung magiging condition mo for passing the grade, for granting scholarships, especially sa mga student, kasi marami namang napapabalita na dahil nga yung mga minor natin or mga students, in order for them to pass the exam, kailangan nilang magkaroon ng condition sa professor, ay yung professor naman or instructor or teacher or trainer natin, papayag yan kasi pabor na pabor yan sa kanila. But always remember na hindi lang po yun yung sukatan kung bakit makakapasa ka. And ang kailangan nyo lang pong gawin is, you have to pursue your study nang walang condition sa ibang tao. Kasi pwede naman kayong magtulungan without having a sexual affair o sexual harassment na mangyayari. Walang motive na mangyayari in sexual harassment kung talagang magtsatsaga kayo. Kasi hindi po nagiging sukatan ng intelligence yung grade nat. Although yes, part of your grade or yung iba kasi ang pinagbabasihan nila na intelligence is a grade. So wag po kayong mag-base din sa grade kasi yung grade na yan, numbers lang yan. Grade is just a number. Pero yung intelligence nyo, hindi yan mawawala as long as iniintindi nyo yung lesson, iniintindi nyo yung purpose ng ginagawa nyo, at meron kayong dream na gusto nyo makamit. And yun yung wag na wag nyong gagawin na as exchange or passing, as exchange of scholarship or para magkaroon ng honor, is magkakaroon kayo ng condition na hindi naman maganda yung magiging result. And at the end of the day, kayo lang din po yung magsisisi. Next, what is the duty of the employer or head of office in a worker education or training environment? So, a person who directs or induces another person to commit any act of sexual harassment or who cooperates to commit the act without which the said act would not have been committed will also be liable under the law. So, yun po yung purpose ni employer, na kung sino man po yung tumulong or yung accomplish nila sa paggawa nila ng act, ay sila po yung liable sa sexual harassment. It's either employer or work related or education related, training development related, na once na kasama ka sa gumagawa ng violation or gumagawa ng hindi magandang gawain, you will be held liable kasi po sa law wala pong exemption yan. Although yes, may exemption sa iba, lalo na yung may mga pera na kaya nilang bayaran kung sino yung mga authorized person na nag-handle, pero wala pong makakaligtas sa batas as long as kailangan nilang pagbayaran yung manililang. Meron lang pong iba na nakakalusot since meron kakilala, malakas yung backer, malakas yung nakapitan or nalapitan, kaya po naa-absuelto agad. Next, what if the employer or head of the office did not undertake any action despite his or her knowledge of sexual harassment act? So, what do you think? What do you think uh, did the employer or head of the office will do to them kung hindi nila binigyan ng action yung isang sexual harassment at long as meron naman silang knowledge? Ano sa tingin niyo yung mangyayari sa kanila kung hindi man lang sila? So, etong discussion, kindly think pa din po habang nag-ongoing po yung discussion natin. So, as we all know, ang mangyayari po sa kanila is they will be held liable. Kasi po, bakit sila hindi magiging liable? Once na alam nila. Kapag po, ang sabi po dyan, despite his or her knowledge of sexual harassment act, kapag po alam nila at nagsumbong sa kanila yung empleyado nila na ganun yung nangyayari, or may pinagsabihan si empleyado na ganun yung nangyayari na authorized person ang pinagsabihan, they will be held liable. Pero they will not be held liable kung wala silang knowledge na nangyayari and hindi nila ipinaalam sa employer nila. Kasi once na pinaalam nila yan sa employer nila, kailangan gumawa sila ng action. So, paano ba nila ma-prevent yung sexual harassment na yan? So, paano nila mape-prevent yung sexual harassment? So, they should disseminate rules and regulations which are consulted from and jointly approved by the employees or students or trainees through their duly designated representative. So, the said rules prescribe the procedure for the investigation of sexual harassment in cases and the administrative sanctions applied for it. So, the said rules and regulations should include guidelines on proper decorum in the workplace and educational or training institution as a bar for prosecution, kasi kung walang guidelines about sa workplace, walang magiging grounds for prosecution. Moreover, you have to create a committee on decorum investigation of cases in sexual harassment, which much better if they should appoint one representative per management para mas ma-monitor. So, in sexual harassment cases, kailangan po niyang magkaroon ng action ang employer nila o yung authorized person, and yung magiging action nila is magkakaroon sila ng rules and regulation or guidelines as part of their decorum. Much better kung magkakaroon sila po ng one representative per management or per group of employee. Kasi po, mas mamamonitor nila yun, and at the same time, kapag po may rules and regulation or guidelines, magiging grounds po yun para po sa prosecution of case. Kasi once na nag-file na ng case, magkakaroon na po yan na grounds for prosecution kung merong guidelines and rules and regulation na violate. Pero kung wala pong rules and regulation, mas mahihirapan po tayo i-prove yung pagkakaroon ng prosecution or pagko-complaint natin kasi wala po tayong strong evidence. Pero kung may guidelines tayo, may rules and regulation na nababiolate, hindi po tayo mahihirapan kasi yun na po yung magiging grounds natin for prosecution. So, another is the penalties applied to the offender. So, any person who violates the provisions of the law shall be penalized by imprisonment of not less than 1 month nor more than 6 months, or a fine of not less than 10,000 pesos nor more than 20,000 pesos, or both, such fine and imprisonment at the discretion of the court. And court din po ang magde-decide kung gaano ba katagal yung imprisonment, depende po sa magiging takbo ng prosecution nila ng case. Next is Republic Act Number 1379, or an act declaring forfeiture in favor of the state any property found to have been unlawfully acquired by any public officer or employee and providing for the proceedings therefore. So, public officer or employee, it means any person holding any public office or employment by virtue of an appointment, election, or contract, and any person holding any office or employment by appointment or contract in any state-owned or controlled corporation or exercise. So, uh, alam niyo naman po na ang public officer or employee, it's whether contractual or not. Pwede po yung nakikita nyo in public or private employee, yung mga public officer natin, mga teachers, instructor, basta nag-hold siya ng public office and meron po siyang nagkaroon sila ng contract or appointment sa isang agency. Not only for the agency or the institution they are considered as public officer or employee. Next, other legitimately acquired property means any real or personal property, money, or securities which the respondent has any time acquired by inheritance and the income thereof or by gift inter vivos before his becoming a public officer or employee. So it is not considered as your own if it is not recorded in your name. So if the ownership is not concealed by your name, otherwise, if the property unlawfully acquired by the respondent but transferred by him to another person or persons on or after the effectivity of this act. So other legitimately acquired property, it means ito po yung property that you've owned. And it is not considered as your own kung hindi po nakapangalan sa inyong isang property. Kung kanina, yung public officer or employee, ito naman po, kasi si Republic Act 1379 talks about the property that you have unlawfully acquired by any public officer or employee and providing for the proceedings therefore. So, meaning po, it talks about all your property. And if it is not your property, it is not considered as your property or hindi po nakapangalan sa inyo yung property na yun, it will be unlawful. And kapag ginamit mo siya, magiging unlawful na siya. As long as hindi pa lalo na ngayon, meron mo kasing instances na kahit sa magkakapamilya na kahit sa inyo yung lupa or sa pamilya niyo yung lupa and hindi nakapangalan sa inyo since nabigyan na nahati-hati na yun per siblings or per daughter, per sons, or for children, and nagkaroon ng gulo, hindi na po yan, it is considered unlawful as long as hindi na naging sayo or hindi nakapangalan sa'yo. Kailangan po natin, para po mapatunayan, kung magkaroon tayo ng strong evidence in acquiring property natin, kailangan ay sa atin nakapangalan ang isang property. Next, any public officer or employee who shall after the effective date of this act transfer or convey any unlawfully acquired property shall be repressed with imprisonment for a term of not exceeding 5 years or a fine not exceeding 10,000 pesos or both such imprisonment and fine. So, kapag po yung public officer employee ay binenta niya or inacquire niya or sinarili niya yung property, pwede po siyang makulong for a term of not exceeding 5 years or fine not exceeding 10,000 pesos or both. But it depends upon the property. It depends upon the complaint being passed or being filed in the court. Next is Republic Act number 8484 or the Access Device Regulation Act of 1998. So it means the access device means any card, plate, code, account number, electronic serial number, personal identification number, other telecommunication service equipment, or instrumental identifier. So, as we all know naman yung access device, as long as access siya ng identity natin, mapa-card man to, code, or account number, considered siya as access device. Next is counterfeit access device. means any access device that is counterfeit, fictitious, altered, or forged, or unidentifiable component of an access device or counterfeit access device. So, through the use of technology, we can easily counterfeit, altered, or forge different document kasi pwede na natin siyang ma-access easily through well-trained or well-equipped person. Kanina nga po, since may access device na tayo, mas madali na siyang ma-access ng ibang tao dahil po sa technology natin. Pwede siyang ma-altered, ma-forge, or kung ano man yung gawin nila sa device na makukuha sa atin. Next is unauthorized access. It means any access device that is stolen, lost, expired, revoked, cancelled, suspended, or obtained with intent to defraud. So, like credit card, once it was being stolen, pwedeng ma-access ng nakakuha, and that is an authorized device in which you have an intention for that access device. Kaya po siya unauthorized kasi once na nakakuha tayo ng isang credit card or kahit anong card, code, account number na nakuha natin, tapos in-access natin siya through the use of technology or gumamit tayo ng ibang way para magamit natin yung card ng ibang tao, considered siya as an authorized access. Next is credit cards. Means any card, plate, coupon book, or other credit device. So, familiar naman siguro kayo sa credit card natin na ginagamit natin siya in different ways. Not only in buying something, but in different ways na pwede natin magamit si credit card. So, what is the penalties for Republic Act 84 or yung access device natin? Access Devices Regulation Act of 1998. So, a fine of 10,000 or twice the value obtained by the offense, whichever is greater imprisonment for not less than 6 years and not more than 10 years. Another is fine of 10,000 or twice the value obtained by the offense, which is greater imprisonment for less than 12 years and not more than 12 years. So, ang penalty po ng access device natin depende po sa gravity. Pag light po, 6 years and not more than 10 years. But kung grave naman po yung naging offense niya, especially sa paggamit o sa pag-fraud ng access device natin, aabot po siya ng 12 years and not more than 20 years. Hanggang reclusion, temporal lang po. Ang penalty po ng RA 84 kasi po card na po yung pinag-uusapan natin and identity of the person for the safety and protection of the person. Pati na rin po sa security. Next is computer forensics. So, it is the acquisition, preservation, analysis, and presentation of computer-related evidence. So, in other words, ang computer forensic natin, using an established and accepted process to seize, acquire, and locate information critical to an investigator. Since computer forensic, ginagamit din po siya ng mga investigator natin for preservation, analysis, and presentation of computer-related evidence. And yung mga evidence na yun is based on computer cases lang po natin or yung mga problem na pwedeng magkaroon ng o makuha natin ng information through the use of computer. So, information that can be located by computer forensics. A vast amount of information can be located on computer systems that are seized from terrorist suspects. The intelligence gathered from the analysis can be used by law enforcement to identify other terrorist suspects. So, like po yung mga websites natin that the terrorists are visiting on the internet information that they are trying to hide from police activity. So, sa information, pwede po siyang malocate through website. Kasi yung website, once it deleted or mawala na yun, ma-hide na siya sa computer, meron po tayong mga well-equipped or well-trained person na pwedeng ma-access through computer. And ang tawag po sa process nila ay yung computer forensics nga po natin. Sila po yung mga bihasa or well-trained na po sa paggamit ng computer and sa pag-access ng iba't ibang websites. And yung websites na yon na nagamit nila sa pangloloko ng ibang tao or paninira ng ibang tao ay maa-access din po and makukuha natin yung information na yon based dun sa website na ginamit nila. Next, stenography. It is the science of hiding information. So, stenography is derived from the Greek word for covered writing. Stego is mechanism to hide information within files. Kaya po siya, stenography, covered writing po. Kaya nga po tinawag na covered writing to hide information. And para hindi po siya madaling maintindihan or ma-access ng ibang tao. Or it is not easily understood by other person. Process used in computer forensics. It is a mechanism that is followed by an investigator in the request of information. So, meron po tayong dalawang process na ginagamit. The process must be followed in order to establish key facts in the case. So, the process will ensure that the information retrieved by the investigator can be used as evidence in the court of law. Ano po yung dalawang process na yon? Yung computer sees overt investigation or computer says covert investigation. Isang overt investigation, isang covert investigation. So, pag sinabi nating overt investigation, ito po yung open investigation. And the seizure is done with the terrorist suspect being aware that his computer has been seized. So, in overt investigation, si terrorist or yung offender natin, aware siya na ini-investigate yung computer na ginamit niya. While si covert investigation, sila po yung mga ito po yung mga closed investigation in which the image is made of the terrorist suspect hard drive without the suspect being aware that the law enforcement is investigating. Kasi po, ang ginagawa naman po ng mga offender dito ay ng mga terrorists is nilalagay po nila sa hard drive na alam nila na hindi magagalaw or makikita ng mga computer forensics natin. And akala nila yung hard drive na yun hindi kayang ma-restore ng mga investigator yung mga files na nandoon. Kasi po, they are thinking na once na nailagay nila sa hard drive, mahirap na pong i-search or makita yung mga files na nailagay nila. So, again, the difference between overt and covert investigation is that in overt investigation, the terrorist suspect are being aware na nagkakaroon ng investigation na says na yung computer nila. While si covert investigation, they are not aware and they are putting it in the hard drive to hide their information or to hide the important information na pwedeng mag-gather ng mga investigator. Next, cyber terrorism. It is the premeditated, politically motivated attack against information, computer systems, computer program, and data, which result in violence against non-combatant targets by subnational groups or clandestine agents. So, ang cyber terrorism, they are committed by a group of persons. Yung mga violent groups natin. Kung natatandaan nyo, may mga violent groups tayo, yung mga Yakuza, mafia. Ngayon po yung mga terrorists natin na considered as a violent group. And yung cyber terrorism, gumagamit po sila ng computer system in order as motivation nila sa pag-attack in other country or other person or other agency. Kasi karaniwan dito, kaya nagkakaroon ng cyber terrorism is yung inggit sa, for example, agency. Isang agency, alam nila na parang malulugi na and gusto nilang makakuha ng information sa ibang agency para tumaas yung rate nila or mag-increase yung kita nila or income nila. Ngayon, magkakaroon ng information gathering in other agency. And ito, ang paggamit po ng information gathering dito is patago lang po. Hindi po siya, nagagawa sila ng site na hindi ma-access na ibang tao, na sila lang po yung nakaka-access. And yung gumagawa nun ay violent group. And they are considered as cyber terrorists. And yung process na ginagawa nila is cyber terrorism kasi through the use of computer. Kaya po, cyber terrorism. Next, computer forensic investigator has the responsibility of recovering data from computers that can be used in the prosecution of criminal or in gathering evidence of a crime. So many computer forensic investigators are police officers or are employed with the police departments, but in smaller areas, they may be private computer experts that are used only when needed by the local police force. Computer forensic investigators are required to testify in court if required to explain the role in evidence gathering and to detail the evidence recovery procedure used. So, si computer forensic investigator, sila po yung mga lateral entry na po in the service or in the government service or in the public service. Kasi po, sila po yung mas kailangan ng mga enforcer natin o mga officers natin, especially in conducting investigation, especially in conducting or in proving the guilt of the suspect. Kasi po sila po yung mas nakakaalam kung ano ba yung kung ano yung meron sa computer o kung anong merong data sa isang computer. And yun yung magiging basis nila para ma-prove ang guilt na isang tao, and they will be used it in the court proceeding. Kasi sila na po yung mga experts, and hindi po pwedeng gumawa ang mga baguhan lang po dito. Kapag po ikaw magaling sa computer pero hindi ka naman po totally equipped or expert, especially in investigating, especially in finding or getting information through the websites, hindi ka rin po pwedeng ma-considered as forensic investigator. Ito pong computer forensic investigator ay mga experts and dumadaan na po sa maraming training. And ginagamit lang po natin sila or na tumutulong sila especially kapag po magkakaroon ng court proceedings. Kasi po, magagamit po yun para ma-prove ang guilt ng isang tao. So, the role of computer in cyber terrorism. First is, there are crimes where the computer is the target. So, it is so-called hacking or intrusion incident. So, yung role of computer in cyber terrorism, ang first po is yung hacking. So, you are familiar naman po na karamihan sa mga terrorist, karamihan po sa mga tao or sa mga gumagawa ng cybercrime is hacking. And yun po yung pinaka-basic nilang ginagawa. And yun yung mas pinapractice nila, hacking. Kasi mas marami silang mga hold na information, and yun yung magagamit nila para mag-improve kung ano yung gusto nila, kung ano yung gusto nilang makuha sa ibang agency, sa ibang institution. Next, there are terrorist-related acts where computers are the medium by which the criminal conduct is committed. So, this would include electronic communications between terrorists. Kasi po, yun po yung ginagamit nilang cyber terrorism na computer to computer. And yung ginagamit nila as means of communication with other person or with other group of person na kasamahan din nila in conducting cyber terrorism. Next is computers are used incidentally to the criminal offense. So such as when the database of terrorist contacts is maintained. And dahil nga po, yung computer is yung basic means natin or basic machine natin na ginagamit in cyber terrorism, sila na po yung nag-i-store ng data and ginagamit nating database in getting information or to hide information, to hack, or to establish natin yung masira natin yung isang institution or isang agency through the use of computer. And ang paggamit po is cybercrime and cyber terrorism po ang process. And sino po yung mga gumagawa? Mga terrorist po. Hindi po siya magagawa ng ordinary people. Yung iba, nakakapanghak lang, pero yung iba po na hacker talaga is may purpose po sila kung bakit sila nanghahack ng mga account. Kaya po dapat yung account natin is secured and may protection policy, and alam po natin yung protection policy natin sa paggamit ng iba't ibang account. So, these are the target of cyber terrorism. First is website, next is telecommunication, third is electrical power, and lastly is transportation. So, for website, they are politically motivated website defacement will likely continue to escalate. So, the most serious consequences of website defacement would involve semantic attacks which entail changing the content of a web page subtly, thus disseminating false information. Yun na po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina na through the use of website, nagkakaroon din po ng hiding of information and as well as ang naipapadala po sa kanila ay false information. Kasi po yung website po, marami po yung well-trained person na nag-e-execute or nagkakandak ng cyber terrorism. And through the use of website, na ipapadala na po natin ang mga wrong information sa kaaway natin or sa gusto nilang pagpadalhan ng false information. Next, telecommunications. In telecommunications, infrastructure which underlie all components of your national infrastructure are growing not only in complexity but are operating closer to their design capacity. And yung ginagamit nila as telecommunication, yung target ng cyber terrorism. Kasi once na nahack nila yung bawat communication system natin, pwede na po nilang ma-access yung mga information na ipinapahatid through agency to agency or institution to institution. And when it comes to electrical power, bakit kasama si electrical power na pwede namang hindi siya kasama? So, kasi si electrical power, they controlled a vast network of supervisory, control, and data acquisition or yung SCADA. Tandaan niyo po yung SCADA na word, yung supervisory, control, and data acquisition system which are vulnerable to attack. Yun po yung SCADA, yun po yung tinatawag nila or yung system nila na nagkocontrol ng lahat ng data. And through electrical power, nakokontrol nila yung lahat ng network. Kasi kung walang electrical power, wala, down po lahat ng system. And through electrical power, na ipapadala nila and na-execute nila yung mga or na-disseminate nila yung mga information na gusto nilang ibigay or ibato sa kapwa nila or sa kalaban nila. Lastly, transportation. And through transportation, natatransmit po nila yung or natatransfer nila yung terrorist o yung mga terrorists into another places kasi po gumagamit sila ng computer device or website din na ginagamit nila para malocate nila ang mga pupuntahan nilang destination. So, that's all for target of cyber terrorism. So, that will be the coverage of our midterm examination in CDI 3. So, if you have question, you can ask me in GC natin. And yun lang, good luck to your midterm examination. So, thank you and God bless.